started here. I want to thank everybody for sitting in and attending this webinar. We're going to talk about exploring the paperless construction office and really connecting the field to the back office. So we're going to stumble a little bit across the mobile initiative concept, which means, I bought these smartphones or these iPads for my staff, and now I'm kind of looking for a direction as far as where do we go from here, other than just email and maybe taking pictures and things like that. So that's kind of what we're going to hit on a little bit. Before we get started, I'll just kind of, this is GoToWebinar, so you've got a few features here. I can't hear you guys, but you can hopefully hear me loud and clear. But on the side panel, you'll see an area for questions or chat. We prefer on the question side. If y'all want to, at any point in time, voice some questions. I'll try to stop kind of in the middle. Maybe if there are some very low-level questions, I can kind of address those. Hopefully, I'll kind of touch on those as we get going. But at the end, I'll also kind of go through those and answer anything that y'all might have as far as questions go. So just direct those into that question panel, and we will go ahead and get started. My name is Chris Jordan. I'm the president of eRISK Corporation, and we are a special company that implements software, both back office and mobile. We help companies with initiatives that want to streamline certain processes. We have certain applications that we've built and that we represent in the market that are designed to make companies work more effectively and more efficiently. And I'm going to be able to kind of show you some of those here today. My contact information is there on the screen, and I'll also have that up here at the end as well. To kind of get started a little bit, I thought it would kind of be good to have a few terms in here and kind of give some high-level concepts as far as what we're going to talk about a little bit today, and really some things to consider. If you're sitting there and you bought everybody smartphones, and now we're kind of looking for which direction to go to, these things right here are some good points to kind of consider. One is a term that probably everybody has heard of or maybe needs to become a little bit aware of, especially for some of our older contractors that maybe are a little slower to the technology forefront, especially on mobility, is BYOT, that's bring your own technology. And what that means is that, I hire a young superintendent or project manager, and even though we don't deploy iPads, he or she is bringing their iPad to the job site, or they're bringing it into the office, and they're looking for ways to use this technology. And if we don't have a direction, we don't have an opportunity for them to use it, they're not going to leave it at home. They're going to come up with their own ways of using it. And that might be downloading a PDF app where they can store plans and drawings on there, or maybe keep files on the system, maybe ways to link into the server. They're going to do kind of their own thing with it, come up with their own processes. And the problem with BYOT is that it could be multi-platform. They may bring Android into an Apple environment or vice versa. It's outside of IT's jurisdiction, and that may become very difficult to manage as far as if you're trying to deploy things. So bring your own technology is kind of a little bit of an issue in some capacities and can cause some risk in certain places. But the thing to realize is that we actually heard a stat. There's 1 billion smart devices in the workforce, so not just personal use, but in the workforce worldwide. So we crossed over that's a billion with a B. So there's a lot of devices out there. People are craving this technology, and there's efficiencies out there to take advantage of. So hopefully we'll be able to give some direction in there. The second is kind of a high-level view. It's personal use versus corporate use. The whole concept of the app that Steve Jobs had, that if you like football, you have the football app. If you like golf, you have the golf app. If you read the New York Times, then you have the New York Times app, whatever the case may be. You have all these that personalize your experience with technology. The problem you have is that the reason you don't have that same acceptance in the corporate world is that it's not generally up to the individual. It's really kind of top-down driven. That the owners and the upper management tell you what you need to do with the corporate information and how to use it, but there's no real clear-cut path for that. Our back office systems are still very, very server-based back office, and connecting those things to the field is really the biggest hurdle. That's why, obviously, you guys are probably here today to kind of look at opportunities that are out there. So that's just some things to kind of think about. There's a reason why corporate use hasn't just blown up the way personal use has is because it can't be so individualized. It's got to be semi-enterprise driven. The next is forms. Why forms? We believe that at the center of everything, every work process is information. Give me some data, and I'm going to do something with it. I'm going to plug it into a report, pay somebody off of it. I'm going to look at it and make a decision off of it. So whether it's a request for information, give me a number, give me information that I need for this project. You know, if it's a credit card receipt, what vendor is this for? What job is it for? What's the cost code? All of that can be a form. So when we start looking at ways to implement mobile technology, we don't need to overcomplicate the process. It's really just taking what we're doing today, maybe over the phone, maybe through email, or maybe trying to handwrite things and busing them into the office. Let's come up with ways that are very measurable and things that are consistent with what we're doing today and just make it more mobile. The other aspect of that, though, is that just because it's mobile doesn't mean it's more efficient. I can fill out a real pretty form, but if I've still got to send it to somebody, they get it in their email, they print it out, they look at it, they key it in, and then they go and they take that and put it in the file where they're then going to have to go pull it later. That's inefficient. It's almost better just to bust it in. You're probably not saving too much time. Whereas if we can integrate the forms to your document management system, we can establish workflows that move the documents around where they need to be as soon as they're generated. If we need to push data into applications like for time, we can do that, or equipment or material. We can update business systems because we're just capturing data and sending it. But it's got to be validated and verified data to do that. So there's an enormous pressure on having these things integrated if you really want to streamline processes. Because if you're not, you've got to be real careful that your mobile initiative doesn't cause more harm than it does good. And lastly, and one of the main things that we look at as a kind of electronic risk consultant is where does all this end up inevitably? You know, I'm capturing daily reports and credit card receipts, and I'm going to be messing with plans and drawings from the job site. Where does all this stored, and where inevitably does it go after I'm done with what I've got to do with it? And that's kind of the million-dollar question. Some of you guys may have invested in paperless back office document management systems, and that's great. Those systems give you the ability to manage your content, report on it, distribute it in high volume. If you ever got into litigation or you have to do a time and material billing, you can pull all that information in a matter of seconds, and you've even got some retention built in there to make sure you're not keeping things longer than you should. Others that might just be looking at their folder structure are probably at a little bit of a loss, is that, you know, where do it doesn't make any sense to print that out and put it in the paper file. So maybe I need to start looking at my folder structure and making sure that we've got some policies in place to kind of help manage that a little bit. So those are some things to kind of consider as we walk through this little demonstration. What we're going to talk about at first is the mobile aspect of it. And this is the tool that we use for it because it checks all the boxes. The name of it is eNTERFACE. It's eNTERFACE Mobile Portal. And the beauty of it is that it marries the integration aspect of it, and it also marries the mobile aspect of it, which is through the App Store and everything else. So let's talk a little bit about, before I kind of jump into the software, establishing the mobile initiative. Okay, so with eNTERFACE, there's a couple of things that you want to make sure, boxes that you have to know if they're important to you or not, and whether or not they're a requirement or not, because that's going to kind of help you make your decision. Building e-forms for business. That's essentially where generally we believe everything starts. If you want to make it simple on the guys out in the field, just say, look, let's start taking job pictures and give me a description and send it back to email address for job photos, and we'll store it in the Windows folder structure. If we have some document management role in there, let's send it directly into the document management system and maybe route it to some people. So those are some things. It all kind of starts and stops with forms, and we believe you should start small and kind of grow as the guys get more and more comfortable out in the field with the mobile technology. The second is, what type of devices do I need? You know, do I need an Android? Does it work on Android? Does it work on in the Apple environment, or both? You know, or is it web-enabled? Do I need to connect a connection to actually run this thing? Because if I'm digging tunnels and I'm underground doing electrical work, I may not have that connectivity, so we've got to make sure that we're checking all the boxes here. And also, I talked a little bit on multiple apps versus one single enterprise app. Can my field guys handle 5 or 6 different apps that we may require them to use on their project? If they have low technical knowledge, maybe we can't ask that of them. Maybe we need to keep it all in one system, so we just have to train and retrain one system. It's really just a list of forms that they already filled out. So we've got to kind of know our base here a little bit as well. The reason we like eNTERFACE is that eNTERFACE works on any device. It is web-enabled, so that allows us to do a lot of kind of the administration work all through a browser. We can build our forms and deploy out. It's also a portal, so we can communicate with our architects and subs and vendors all through this web and email type environment. But it's also where when we build these forms, we deploy out through the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. So if the guy's got an Android or a smartphone, they go download eNTERFACE, and they have all the forms that you built with them, but it's also got the integrated data values for job numbers and cost codes and vendors all associated with the forms right there on the smart device. And that's an invaluable tool because it marries kind of everything underneath this umbrella, because a lot of these things hit a couple of these check marks, but very few things can really check all the boxes. And that's why this hybrid type application is really pretty powerful, because you can do a lot with it. Just some very quick facts about eNTERFACE. I kind of covered a little bit of these. This is a hybrid application, so it's both web and it's in a true app environment. So that means not connected to the internet. You can fill out forms doing that. eNTERFACE works on any device, so whether you're running it through the app, through a Windows Phone, Android, whatever the case, you can do that. At its core, eNTERFACE is just a form builder. You can build any corporate forms and deploy it out to the field. So for safety, if you're using a safety app to kind of track and manage different things, you can use eNTERFACE for that. Daily reports, same thing. Time, you can do it for time. Any form that we're using today, we can build eNTERFACE to emulate not the way eNTERFACE dictates it, but the way that you do it. It's your questions and answers, and I'll get to that here when I jump into the software. But it's an enterprise business app. It's your business app, and it's one system that you can use and maintain and manage. And as your company evolves, as you grow more mobile and more technological, the guys get more used to using the application, you can begin to roll out a few more forms to them, empower them a little bit more, and obviously as functionality arises and we create more and more things on the eNTERFACE platform, all that becomes lanyard because the guys are more used to using their business app. So that's kind of the concepts of what we're going to show today. I'm going to stop right here and begin walking through a little bit of the software so that we can see this. There's a lot going on this screen. This is the administrative screen, so I can see everything that's going on the portal. But just to kind of walk through a little bit of a definition as far as what you're seeing here, is this is the web side of the app. So this is what's going to drive how you create the forms that you want to deploy out to the field. So for example, here's one. If you wanted to use it kind of in a tethered mode, it'll kind of look like this. You've got some dashboards which have forms that have been routed to you, so it's got built-in routing. And appreciate, because it's web-enabled and it uses the power of email to link to the forms that are routing around, we can route things out to our subs. If we want to, hey, a request for information, hey, give me some information here, request for quote. They can upload their quote and send it back. We can also route from the back office out to the field and say, hey, look, here's the new subcontract for that vendor, so we can send that out to the field so they have a copy of it. So we have a routing componentry in this. We also have unfinished forms. So this would be, for an example, if I was doing a daily report and I got halfway through it, or maybe a safety inspection, and I had to go to lunch or something took me off task, I had something I had to go deal with, I can dock this form as an unfinished form and come back to it later and just take off right where I left off. So unfinished forms kind of help the field dock these things and continually track activity as it's going on or as I'm doing my punch list walkthrough. And the last thing about it is it comes standard with issues management. And issues management may not seem like such a big deal, but what issues management is it's bait. It's a reason to get these guys out in the field to use this application. And what this does is essentially allows me to track issues that are normal, urgent, critical. You can see kind of the tabbing here to the side. but they can take pictures of things. They can set the priority status to open or closed, and then I can actually see that as a project manager. So if it was associated to a contractor, I could see that. Is it urgent? Is it normal critical? Is it open, pending, or closed? I could see notes on the process, and then also any images that may have documented what the problem was as it arose. Now, if you appreciate this, I can have this access as from my smartphone as I'm walking around the job site. So not only does my direct field guy have access to this, but my project managers who might be managing multiple projects, they see all their open issues as they're happening. And it's very high level. It's mobile. It's on their phone. So while they're eating lunch, they can go through their issues and see what's open, what they might be able to help the superintendent with. But all this right here is on the smartphone. And if you appreciate that whole obstacle is how am I going to get my guys to use it, this is a tool for them that might begin breaking down those barriers and might work a little bit better than their loose leaf piece of paper, or whatever they're putting in their binder sitting there on the dashboard of their truck. So this is something that we tried to build in there just to kind of get that functionality. Now, that's a little bit kind of the dashboard system, but essentially I kind of talked a little bit about this earlier. At its core, this is a form building tool. So for any form, we can build this in the system. So if I come underneath form management to manage my forms, appreciate I'm an administrator here, so this wouldn't be for everybody. But you can build whatever form you may want to build for whatever process. So, for example, I'll pick this daily report because I'm going to use this kind of as my example here. But if I wanted to come edit, this is our form builder tool. And this is already done, so it's going to work in reverse. But if you appreciate this, I'm going to back up here to the front. When it comes time to build a form, I'm going to give it a name and a description. Once I give it a name and description, I'm going to create categories for that form. So you can imagine a daily report. I may want to track site conditions, trades, subcontractors, rentals, comments. There's various categories that are generally on a daily report. Same thing with maybe time or any type of inspection. Maybe I'm doing various categories of inspection. Also, I've got just some general header information, just like any other form you fill out. What's the job number? What's the date? Who's the inspector? Something like that. So we set up our categories, and then once we're done setting up our categories, we then apply questions to the various categories. So, for example, I'll kind of come underneath here. If I wanted to add a question, like we appreciate number of employees on the site and description, what the job was done. You can add question types, and it could be very simple. Subcontractors. I can put a sort order when I want it to show up, and then it becomes an answer type. And then this is where it becomes very flexible. So if you appreciate this, we can have questions and answer types that can be for various purposes. So, for example, auto increment. If I wanted to do a field purchase order and track it with some type of auto incrementing number across all my projects, so at least I have a numeric value associating that with it, I can do that. A date input, a dollar amount, a file upload, which could be a Word or Excel or a PDF file or any file that we wanted to upload, an image upload, which would empower them to take a picture of a credit card receipt or a job photo, list tables, which could be a direct lookup out of an Excel spreadsheet or some type of database that you might want to have, yes, no buttons for urgent, critical, with a slider or not. If you're doing, I'll show you that in just a second. I can capture a signature. A table lookup is really the integration component. If I wanted to have a cost code lookup out of my accounting software, I can have that table lookup there available to me. So I can build these tables based off of the existing application. Temperature, obviously text and everything else. So we're continually adding answer types as we kind of go through these processes a bit, and as our customers kind of build out the different scenarios. But essentially, setting these things is very easy to do. And once we've got them here, I've created this form. I can add them to existing categories, existing jobs. I can give them roles. Maybe I just want certain people to see these forms. I can make them routable or not. I can merge the documents, which would compile everything into one big PDF file, make it active, obviously, from here. But all in a matter of seconds or really minutes, depending on the complexity of the form, we can build these forms, and it's very simple to do. And then once they're built, it becomes very simple to assign things out to jobs. We can manage projects here, so we can have various projects that we want to assign users to. And then once we go and we set up our users, it's very easy to assign these users to a job. This is myself. So, for example, I have access to these jobs. If I wanted to take myself off of the Holiday Inn job, I just hit remove. If I wanted to add myself to the Ryan job, I just hit assign. So it's very easy to administer this to anybody in the company. So that's kind of a little bit about the form management and the setup. Now I'm going to show you a little bit about what this actually looks like on the portal, at least for the guys that are going to be responsible for filling this information out. So appreciate this. It shrinks to fit whatever device that it's on. So if it's on an iPad, it looks like this. If it's on a smartphone, it shrinks to look a little bit more like this. If you're running it as a native app, obviously Android looks a little more like Android. Apple looks a little bit more like the Apple apps. So you've got a little bit of difference if you're running it tethered or not tethered. If it comes time to actually filling out a form, I can simply go to a job that I might have a reference to. And just for example, here's a job that we have a couple of forms for. This is a client that wanted a 25-point OSHA inspection. So I'll show this one as an example because it's got some neat little questions and answer types. They wanted a date on here, an inspection type. They had 3 different types. So this was obviously a pick list that they came up with. So this could be this is a new inspection or maybe a follow-up. They could tag their inspectors. This is just a list of their possible inspectors. So these aren't integrated values. They're just list table lookups. The inspection list is just their questions and answers. Yes, no, yes, no. They come through here and go through the 25-point inspection. We appreciate this is probably what they're doing on a checklist anyway today. Verifications, they can list deficiencies. Obviously with the apps, with the smartphone, they can talk to it, and which is kind of a neat little feature for them. They don't have to type any of this stuff in. And you can even gather a signature and submit it to the form. Now, what's powerful about this is they actually require 2 signatures on the sign-off. So you've got some options when it comes to submit it. I can go ahead and submit the form and create the PDF and send emails. I could drop it into the document management system, which we'll show that in just a second. Or I may want to route this to somebody. Maybe I want to route this to Chris J. because he's going to need to see it. So when I hit route, it takes that form and then shoots Chris J an email, and then they're going to be able to drill down into that form and see those answers. This is actually one I did a little bit earlier, but this is essentially the email that they get, and I can form's been routed to you, view it in the system. This would obviously give you a little bit more information, but this allows me to drill directly into that form and see, okay, as a supervisor, okay, I see how it was answered. This is one I did previously. I can see the signature, and then I can sign off on the deficiencies and say, yeah, that looks okay. And I submit that form, and then I don't need to route it to anybody else. I'm kind of the manager, so I just hit submit the form, and then I'm done. That submits that form to email, or could submit it to our document management system. But that's kind of how we can use the form to kind of automate some of these processes all through the form aspect of it. Now, that gave you a little bit of an example of a very simple form for those purposes. I'm going to show you a couple of other things real quick. One is that once we create these forms, they sit on a private cloud that you guys handle, you guys own, and it's part of the deal. It's up in the cloud that we host it for you, but it's your server. We can be connected to your back office applications for integration, but they don't have to necessarily take everything off the server. You can keep things up there. So like, for example, we have search built into the system. So if we wanted to give the guys the ability to search their daily reports, we could search daily report here for particular jobs, maybe just the ones for Northwest Foods. I can even search by user that filled it out. I hit search, and this is going to show me, okay, I don't have any daily reports for that one. Oh, that's a daily question. Sorry. All right, so I hit search here, and this is going to go out, and I've got a lot of daily reports here. I demo off this form. So there's 204 total records here. So I'm actually really just looking for the ones that had the word cloudy in. So when I hit search, this allows me to only see the 5 that actually had the word cloudy. Now I can view the answers here as a mobile form, so I could see how it was answered. So I don't really need to see it as a PDF form unless I just wanted to. Or if I wanted to email this thing out, I could download the PDF here, call it up on the screen, and then view it, print it out, email it out, whatever the case may be. Now, if you appreciate, this is just a standard daily report. It's got our logo on it. It would look just like your daily report. But this is kind of the examples of how you can use the system. Not only can you submit forms, but you can also call up previous forms, like job photos or daily reports for the previous day, whatever the case may be. So this portal is really all-encompassing for a field user that may want to reference documents here and there and at least submit things. Now, that's a little bit about kind of the application and how it's used. To show you some of the forms, just going to give you an idea of where to start. This is one that has a whole bunch of forms for it. This is check requests, daily reports, delivery tickets, job photos, job setup forms. Sometimes that's something that companies are looking for. Purchase order change orders, field purchase orders, requests for information. I can obviously get external users in the system as well. Safety forms, I showed you one of those. Vacation requests. All these are fair game. Any work process, any form that you want to set up, is all you can do that all from this portal. Now, the whole point of this presentation was to talk about how we can connect this to our back office, because that's really the biggest thing. Everybody can set up a form, and there's plenty of applications out there that do very similar stuff. Where eNTERFACE begins to separate itself as a product is through this. I've got a form here that's kind of a little demo form, so appreciate it's really not built for anything other than showing this. So if the functionality isn't exactly, doesn't jive with the form, forgive it. But here's an example. If I wanted an employee lookup, and I wanted that integrated with my actual employee list out of, let's just say, Timberline or Computeries or Viewpoint, I can just start typing the employee name, and here's now my employee list out of my Timberline application or Viewpoint application, and I select it. Job information. If I wanted a job number, I just start typing Northwest, and then boom, here's my job number and job name, all integrated with my databases. If I took pictures of my credit card receipts and I wanted a cost code, 11-something, here's my cost code list that I can even put a description on there if I wanted to. This is actual integrated data, and this is what empowers our mobile application to be able to not only take a picture of that credit card receipt, but code it to the right job number and the right vendor, and then submit it in so that when the Amex bill comes in, it's there as supporting paperwork, and I didn't have to have somebody in accounting or reception deal with my credit card receipts. If you don't validate it, you can't send it directly into any system because you're going to get garbage in there. So that's why the power of eNTERFACE is so important, that integration component, because, again, you don't want to make more work for somebody. You want it to be a seamless process, and it starts with being able to integrate this process. Now, that's kind of the first process, that it's got to be able to be collected in some type of capacity with some layers of integration. So now let me go ahead and I'm going to fill out a form, and we're going to show you how we can actually connect the field to the back office. We connect it through data, and I showed you that right there through the integration values. But we also connect it through the work processes, because I've got to send this to somebody. So here's a, let's just say 12/12 webinar. All right, so this is a daily report. So this is actually the one that I just set up. So, remember I had those slide questions. This is what that looks like. Site conditions, subcontractors on the job site. There were 3 from Jordan Painting, and they, painted exterior. Exterior. I could track an issue right here. Remember, we had issues management, so from every screen I could set up an issue if I just wanted to do that. But then when it comes down to submitting the form, this is where we can now begin initiating the process. You see files submitted to Paperless right here. This is now initiating my work process. So appreciate it. This isn't limited to a daily report. It's any form that we want to integrate with this whole process here. All that is fair game. Now, let's talk a little bit about, as soon as I hit submit, what that can actually begin doing. I'm going to go ahead and start calling up my server here so I can get into here and show it to you. As soon as I hit that submit button, that's going to begin calling. begin a work process that can do one of about 4 different things. One is we can send email notifications. Email is very simple. If you wanted to set up a rule that said every time a daily report gets filed or gets created, it sends it to the owner, and the owner gets a copy of it. And he doesn't have to be in the file system. He can just get it very loosely through email, and that's perfect. You want to set up an a safety supervisor to get emailed every time there's a safety infraction. You can do that. So obviously very loose. So that's one option. The other option would be, because I validated it at the point of data collection, there's no reason why I can't submit that directly into possibly a document management system. And this is the one that we represent, paperless environments. But we can send it directly in here because I validated a few pieces of information, right? Job number and job name and maybe a few other pieces of information. I can submit it directly into the system completely seamlessly and not have to have any human interaction, quality control it or deal with it. So for example, what we do a lot is like with receiver tickets. I don't really need a receiver ticket to notify anybody, but when I do need it is when the invoice comes in. So I want to make sure that it's in the right place to be matched up to that invoice when I key that thing in. So we can eliminate all the headache of getting in receiver tickets and just have it there waiting on the invoice when it comes in. That's a perfect example of when I really don't need a work process. In some cases, though, we actually will need somebody to scrub it. Like a daily report's a perfect example. If I know that my daily reports are going to go out to my owner, we may want to have somebody on the front end, maybe reception, maybe a project assistant, scrub the daily report and make sure the guy used proper grammar on there or maybe didn't cuss on the daily report, whatever the case may be. But we have that option to be able to kind of send it to a holding pattern. So I'm going to pause here and pivot just so we can all be on the same page here. Remember, we talked a little bit earlier about where does this inevitably end up. We can send it to the file server, and we can just have it sitting there, send it to an email that you drag into a folder structure. Very loose type management on that. We can do that. We can also store the records in our little content management stuff out in the cloud, where you saw the search capabilities there. If you wanted to take the process and really begin to build some controls on it and actually connect it to your existing application, this is a solution that kind of handles where inevitably it ends up, and we call it pVault by Paperless Environments. And obviously, it's document management. You can search things index-based, so we categorize and organize things based off of various pieces of information like job number or vendor name or vendor number, and these are all integrated values with your accounting application. You know, here, A1 Electric, this is, again, a vendor that we're pulling directly out of possibly Timberline or Computeries or something like that. So this is kind of what's going on underneath the scenes here, but we're a document management, so we're built on document types. We also have this concept of user queues, which user queues manage the things that come into the system. So daily reports go into user queues or job photos or something like that. And user queues are essentially the equivalent of a cubby or somebody's desk or maybe a department's cubby hole. So you can start sending these things into the proper people that know what to do with this documentation. User queues can be set up for payroll time cards or safety forms or credit card receipts. All this whole concept is user queues. So appreciate this. I had a business rule that wanted to send those daily reports in, but we wanted them to go to a daily reports user queue right here. So for example, here I go to the latest form that was just submitted, and I call it my user queue, and look here. This is the 12/12 webinar that I just filled out with Jordan painted the exterior. This form was just submitted in from the mobile device, a smartphone hundreds of miles away from the job site. It was submitted in a few seconds ago. And I can look here, I can scrub it. It could have gone directly in without anybody looking at it, but daily reports we wanted to look at. I see here it's already got the job number on it and the job name, all integrated with my project management system or my accounting system. It's got the date on it, the document type, and I hit index, and I'm done. I just put that in the system. It's stored and archived, and if I ever want to see it, I can go call up every document for a particular job number and there I'm going to see all my daily reports and my requests for information and invoices and everything related to that job, all within this document management system. So that work process right there took a form out in the field, dropped it into the document management system, so now we have it for archiving purposes, and you got quality controlled by somebody on the front end. And that's fine. That's a very simple work process. But sometimes that form needs to go and impact other people. So what we actually built into the system is a business intelligence routing tool called DocRoute. And what DocRoute allows us to do is begin to build those work processes and actually make them end-to-end. So for example, here I can actually set up a business rule for daily reports that say every daily report for job 03-001, that's that Northwest Foods warehouse job, needs to go to these people for review in a particular order. And if I wanted to add somebody to it, I just check them and make them, number 4 on the list. So I can do that right here. So we can begin setting up these business rules for any form that we want to create on the smartphone, and this now controls where they inevitably go for routing purposes, and then for general archiving. Purchase order is a great example. This is how we handle field purchase orders. They go to somebody needs some material or equipment or something out on the field. They do a purchase requisition. It sends it to the project manager on what they need. PM either approves it or rejects it. If he approves it, it then goes maybe to an accounting user, approver, manager, if it's over a certain dollar amount, or if it's under, it just goes straight to purchasing. And purchasing is number 2 on the sequence. So those types of work processes can be completely automated. Now, appreciate this. I had that business route set up already for daily reports. So if you appreciate this, when that receptionist kind of quality controlled the daily report and hit index, it automatically drops into that work process, and I'm the project manager on the route. I get notified via email, hey, you need to come in and review that daily report. So when I come into my routing inbox, there's 1212 webinar. It was routed to me. I can see notes on it, who's left to see it, who's seen it before me. I could put notes on it, sticky notes, whatever I wanted to do, sign it. I could email it out, print it out, whatever I wanted to do. And this gives me full control of this whole document. And then when I hit release, it then goes, I can put a little stamp in it, but when I release it, it's off my desk and off to the next person for route. Or if I'm done with it, if it's just cursory review, I looked at it, it's fine, it's sitting there in the job file. If I ever need to go look at it, I can obviously go search it. I can come in there and search, daily reports for, particular purposes. This is a little different way of searching it. This in the document management system. If I want to go search a daily report for a particular job name or job number, Northwest Foods Warehouse, okay, and search, it'll go find every daily report for me that I'm looking for, and the description's off a little bit whenever we were submitting, but I have them parked there in my document management system that I can now reference. So whenever I want to see that daily report, whether I'm on the smartphone or I want to search it in this system, I can do that. We also have kind of some browser-based searching that generally is a little easier to use. You can set up this to look a little bit more like your folder structure. So to kind of stop there and appreciate bridging the field back to the document management system, we can create any form from the smartphone, link it to our accounting database for some validation rules, and then once we've submitted them, we can create any work process that needs to go and be automated and follow a particular business rule. So if you're looking for this kind of mobile initiative as far as, how do I start, where does it begin, it really starts with forms. A good operator, what a lot of customers do is they kind of pick their pain point. Is it field POs, or is it job photos, or safety report, incident reports? Start there. If we know it's a need and we know it's a quick need or a quick fix, let's try to tackle that. We create a form in a couple of minutes, and we deploy out to everybody in the field. And then we begin training our users on getting more comfortable using the app. And once they get comfortable, you can begin building more and more forms. And when we start talking about looking for direction on mobility, directions as far as, where do we take this whole thing? Where do we Do I just go let everybody download whatever apps they want, or do I need to maybe have some type of initiative? We believe that it has to come top down, and these little applications here, the eNTERFACE or PVault mobile application, powered by the document management piece on the back end, offers you the ability to create and automate any work process that you may need. I'll give you a couple of other real quick examples. PVault, or Paperless Environments, has also accounts payable routing. And we alluded to a little bit earlier about some forms that maybe didn't require any type of scrubbing, like support paperwork, receiver tickets, or maybe credit card receipts. Those all come into play here. When I'm entering in invoices into PVault, I can quickly come in and I'll go ahead and call one of these up. We take over the AP functions of, if we don't have any accounting users. You actually enter in the invoice into our system. You'll break out the lines. It just mimics all the functionality you have in your current system. But when I hit documents right here, PVault will go out and find related paperwork to the invoice that I just keyed in. So you appreciate, as soon as I hit documents, it would go out and automatically find that field PO that was submitted in. It would also go out and find that receiver ticket that they took a picture of and coded it and submitted it in with the PO number on it. So all that document matching, the system does completely automatically. And that can, and if you're struggling, trying to sort supporting paperwork or compile all of it and keep it all in one place so we can have it when the invoice comes in, the system can automate that whole process and make it completely seamless and take all the headache away. So this is another tremendous value. So it doesn't have to necessarily drive the work process. It can just be support of the work process. And all this is coming in as it's coming in and doesn't involve any manpower having to worry about printing things out or scanning things in or dragging things into a system and putting a tag on it. All that's done essentially out in the field when we require them to fill out the form. And that's really where the horsepower comes in for our document management and our routing system. That is all initiated out from the field. Now, one last thing before I kind of finish up here, the power of document management, if you don't already have a paperless system, is here. If y'all ever have to produce backup or time and material, or you get into an audit or in litigation, you need to pull a bunch of backup and support paperwork. What you don't have the ability to do in the folder structure today is to create large outputs of files based off of job numbers and things like that. It can become very cumbersome. So what we're able to do once we get everything in one system is that if I ever wanted to run and do it like a time and material billing for a particular document or for a particular billing cycle or whatever the case may be, I can come in and quickly select the files that I want for a particular job number or a vendor, whatever the case may be, and for volume's sake, I'll go ahead and hit search. There's 218 documents here in the system. I hit select all and send. This is every AP document for a particular job or whatever I'm doing for maybe cost plus job, and I'm going to be able to pull every single one of these documents. These could be the forms and invoices and everything else that came in. They come in not only with the images, but also with the indexes associated with them, so their vendors and their invoice numbers and everything else. I can include a viewer, which that allows me to actually, have a skeleton version of the software that I can hand to an owner or somebody or an external user. Select PDF, burn off to a CD or a DVD or a place on the network, and save the distribution. In a matter of seconds, I could have just done that T&M billing. Or pull all the files that the auditor may have requested, all in a matter of seconds. So that's really the power of this whole concept of where it inevitably goes. So although we specialize very much in the front-end mobility aspect of it, is that using this technology, integrating it with your business systems, it's got to go somewhere inevitably. And what we have is we have a product that maintains the back-end work process that's actually integrated to your accounting and project management system, and really begins to automate a lot of these processes and brings everything together and makes it work. I'll show one last little piece here. We have this with Timberline and several other applications on the market, Stage 100, viewpoint, working with computers as well. So what we actually have the ability to do, and this is kind of summing up the whole connection aspects to your applications, is I can actually come in and do a kind of a vendor inquiry into an application and hit my paperclip and hit open. And then what this allows me to do is that all those files, right, the mobile forms, the files that came in that were dragged or scanned into the system are all sitting in my document management system here. So from within this, my accounting and project management applications, I can even get to those files as they're coming in and stored in the system. And this is a really powerful tool for this advanced integration. So you can imagine if I was doing a vendor inquiry, I could immediately see those receiver tickets and credit card receipts that were coming in from the smartphone, all from the application. So appreciate bridging this whole gap, bridging the divide from the field to the in-house. This not only connects you to the document management system, but even through the actual accounting or project management system that you might be using. So to kind of bounce out of here real quick and then jump back into kind of the summary of everything, and I'll kind of pause there. You saw some of the forms that we use. Accounts payable routing, we have invoice routing and approval. That's obviously part of the document management system. We have business intelligence routing. That's a daily report or where we can create whatever form and send it on any business rule that we want. We also have those external users, where architects and owners, that's where that email where I was able to get routed a form and drill directly in and maybe upload some information from the form. All those work processes are fair game, and they're user definable where you can configure those on your own. So to kind of summarize this whole process and this whole webinar here is that if you've got a mobile initiative, you want to have a plan. You want to know what you can expect from your team. Can your guys handle smartphones? You know, do we need to schedule training classes to get these guys understanding how to use a smartphone? If they're past that and they're actually doing things today, then let's have a plan that allows us to actually, you know, start small, but we're building on, that we can build on and create successes. The second one, don't create more work. Make sure that just because it's mobile and fast doesn't mean that it's doing anything for the back office. It might be causing more work, because if I can't eliminate the filing aspect of it, then I'm going to have issues. So I've got to at least make sure that I'm touching the paper one time and keying it in one time. That's a good judge on work process, as, you know, how many times am I going to key this thing in? If it's more than once or twice, then it's probably an issue in that work process, and it probably doesn't make as much sense. Is it a one-time touch of the paper, or can I not create paper at all through a mobile form? Those are the things that we want to think about a little bit. Start small. I kind of talked a little bit about that. You know, create the win early and get the guys committed to the technology, and then grow it as you go. Watch for escalating costs. The reason we like eNTERFACE is that it's flat fee. So you kind of pay for, like, if you wanted unlimited users, you can have that. If you wanted under 50 users, you know, for a smaller company, you can do that. Under 5, you can do that. So there's different price points for those different things, and you can, it doesn't, you know, it's unlimited forms. So, for example, a company that maybe only had, you know, 7 or 8 guys out in the field, they get, you know, at the under 10 user price, but they could use it for daily reports and job photos and vacation requests and credit card receipts and all the different applications that you may use, and the cost as a whole only just becomes more valuable because you don't have these escalating pay per form type costs. If you look at kind of that, you know, multi-app environment, if you're not careful, you may go and give the guys the ability to go download, you know, 6 or 7 different apps that might be $5 and $9 a month, and by the time you're done with it, you're paying almost $1,000 a month on reoccurring costs just off mobile apps on the guy's smartphones that you don't really have control over. So you've got escalating costs associated with all that, and not to mention the watch for risk exposure. If you let the guys and they bring their own technology, right, BYOT, if they're using mobile apps that they think are the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? You have the PDF app with this e-signature thing. Well, where is that inevitably being stored? If it's in the cloud on whatever native app that is, well, you don't own that information. It's not your server, it's their server. You may have signed contracts and things like that up in the cloud, which could be a risk exposure if you don't have a policy that, they're printing all that stuff out, and printing things from an iPad is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So those are the things that you've got to consider and make sure that you're protecting on the electronic risk exposure, that you're at least making sure that you've got control of the documentation, because as we all know, sometimes people get fired and sometimes people leave the company. So if they're using their own technology that they brought that's not underneath the owner jurisdiction, you can run into some risk exposure. We see it all the time. It's actually where we got our name eRisk from. So those are some things just to kind of keep in mind. And that's why we like Paperless and eNTERFACE's combination, because it checks all the boxes. It gives us a place to put things. It gives us a roadmap for the mobile initiative, and it reduces the risk and the full-time equivalents over time, because we're working smart. And that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today, connecting the field to the back office. So I'll kind of stop here and then answer any questions. I put my contact information up here as well. If you want to shoot me an email, you can do that. I can answer questions, and I'll kind of stop there. Appreciate everybody's time today on the webinar. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them in that questions category down there at the bottom. And then I will stop there and then answer any questions that y'all may have.